one colour in the round. So if you've never done brioche before, brioche is like a dense rib of knit one and purl one stitches. And so these proud columns here are the knit or the brioche knit columns, and the ones that are basically further back or recessed are the purled columns. So you alternate between a brioche knit and a brioche purl, and so on all the way around. It is a reversible fabric, so you get a fabulous colour, fabulous texture on both sides, and a lovely pattern to match as well. So in essence, when you are brioche knitting, you tend to work one set of stitches first. So for example, you would knit the brioche knit stitches, and then you slip the brioche purl stitches. And then when you've done all your brioche knit stitches, then we go back around and we deal with the brioche purl stitches. So and every kind of row involves, or round involves, like 2 steps. You work the knit stitches, and then you slip the purls, and then you slip the knit stitches that you've already barked or brioche knit, and then you work the brioche purl stitches. So it's always like splitting the stitches in half, working with one set, and then going back to the beginning of that to finish off that entire round, so that both stitches or all stitches have actually been worked. And so I'll show you now how we set that up. So here I have some already, actually this is a twisted rib, because this is like a setup for a new hat that I've been knitting. And so we've come to the end of a round, and we are about to do our first setup round for our brioche knitting. So as I said before, we're going to knit the first stitch, then we're going to slip the next one, which will be a purl, and then we're going to brioche knit the next one, although the setup round this will be a knit row, and we'll work all the way around until we finish all our knitting, and then we'll deal with our brioche purl or our purl stitches that we've slipped. So how we go about our setup row is we're going to knit this first stitch, and then we're going to slip the next stitch, which is our purl stitch. Now in brioche knitting, you always bring the working yarn to the front between your needles. We're going to slip this guy purlwise, and then when we knit our next stitch, our yarn over is created. So we actually have a yarn over our purl stitch. That's what enables us to have that lovely dense fabric, because we're literally going to be dealing with 2 loops for every stitch that we do in brioche knitting. So again, we're going to bring the yarn to the front of our work. We're going to slip this one purlwise, and then we're going to knit the next stitch. This is our setup row for all our knit stitches. We're going to slip the purl stitch, yarn over, and we're going to knit the next stitch. And we just keep repeating that all the way around until we get back to our marker. So we're going to slip this purlwise, bring the yarn over, and knit the next stitch. Now it's very important to note that when we get further on, these yarn overs are not counted as an extra stitch in brioche knitting. You're going to end up knitting these 2 together to create this brioche purl stitch. So that's one thing to note. A lot of people in the beginning count these as 2 separate stitches. They're not. They are literally counted as 1 stitch. Okay, so if you continue working around, I'll come back to you to show you how we deal with our marker here at the end and the yarn. Okay? Hi, so here we are at the end of our first setup row for our knit stitches. So we've got to our last stitch here, which is the purl stitch. So again, we're going to slip that one, so we bring our yarn to the working yarn to the front. We're going to slip this purlwise, and then that's going to be a yarn over. So what we do is we slip our marker, our end of row marker, and we leave him there. Now we're going to deal with all our purl stitches. So what's happened here is we're going to have to slip this one because we've already knitted in our setup row. So now around, we just basically want to slip this. So well, again, with brioche knitting, you bring your yarn to the front for slipping. Then we're going to slip it purlwise like we would do any other stitch. Then we are going to wrap, because this is all dealing with purls, we're going to wrap the yarn all the way around the back and to the front again between the needles in order to purl or brioche purl these stitches, and that's called a burp. So we burp through the 2 strands here on our needle, or the 2 loops that we have the yarn over and the original purl stitch, and that's called a brioche purl or a burp. Again, we want to slip this knit stitch, and because the yarn is to the front, that's perfect, it can stay there. We slip that one purlwise, we wrap the yarn around, bring it between the 2 needles, and again we're going to brioche purl both of the loops together, and that is called a burp in brioche knitting. There's a lot of burping and barking. So we again, here we go, we're going to slip this one, our working yarn's to the front already, so that's perfect. And we go over and we burp. Again, we slip it purlwise, yarn around, and we burp. And you just continue doing that all the way around with this one. So this is us working the other set of stitches, or the purl stitches that we slipped the first time around. And that's what I talked about, where you alternate between, you know, what stitches you're working on. And until you do all of them, either purling them or knitting them, you haven't completed the round. So if you continue on with that, I will see you back at the end where the end of row round marker is, and then we can pick it up from there. Okay? So here we are at the end of our burp setup round. We've got to slip this and bringing our yarn over and wrapping it around to give it its nice little yarn over, and then we're going to burp that last stitch before we get to the marker. So now the next round is our first round of proper brioche knitting. So because every single one of our knit stitches was slipped in the last one, and it has a lovely yarn over, so that's going to be our bark stitch this time around. So we're going to, again, so we're in like round 1 of our barks, and then we'll do round 1 of our burps, and that's how we do it. So we're going to slip the marker over. Now, because we just burped our yarn, our working yarn to the front, what we want to do is literally bring it between the needles and bring it behind, so it's in behind position. And then we're going to knit or brioche knit these 2 strands together, our knit stitch and its yarn over, and that is called a bark or a brioche knit. And again, just like our setup row, we need to bring our working yarn to the front because we're going to slip this guy and give him his yarn over so we can burp it in the next round, or the part of the next round. So we're going to slip that one. Again, we're going to bring the yarn over and we're going to bark the next 2 strands. Yarn to the front, slip one, yarn over, and bark or brioche knit. Yarn to the front, slip the purl stitch, or yarn over, and we brioche knit the 2 strands together. And we continue to do that, so slip one, purlwise, yarn over, and bark. Yarn to the front, slip one, purlwise, brioche knit with your yarn over, and then you keep repeating that. So if we repeat that all the way to the end until I get to the end of round marker, then I'll show you how to deal with the yarn when we get there. Okay, see you in a moment. So here we're at the end of our first bark round, or part, I'd say 1A, because we're going to bark our stitches, and part of, I guess, 1B is the burping of the stitches. So again, I'm just going to bark these last couple. I'm going to slip this yarn over. So we slip our row marker, and then because we basically barked the knit stitches in the last round, and now we're going to slip them. And again, the rule is when we're going to slip our stitches, we always bring our working yarn to the front. Now, the yarn over would have happened here because this is a purl, so we basically loop it all the way around and bring it to the front. And then we're going to slip that one, and we're going to wrap it around it again because we're going to be burping or brioche purling the next 2 strands together. So again, it's kind of like a double wrap over, because you're basically going to be, the end of your last round was a purl stitch, so it's getting its yarn over. So you slipped it, and then we're going to wrap it around to the front because we need our working yarn to the front for slipping a stitch. So again, slip it purlwise, but this needs its yarn over. So then we wrap that around, bring it to the front, and then we do our brioche purl, where we purl the 2 strands together. Again, so slip it, and because our working yarn's to the front, it can stay there, wrap it all the way around, again, and brioche purl. Slip 1, yarn over, and burp. There you go, slip, over, and burp. Kind of sounds funny, right? Slip, over, and burp. Okay, and then we continue that all the way around, and I'll show you one last of how we are with our yarn when we get to the very end of that, and then you will be done. And you literally keep repeating 1 half round of doing half of the stitches in knit and the other half in burps, and that is how we have our fabric. So I'll just continue on, and I'll show you how we deal with our end of row marker again with the yarn, and then you'll be on your way. So here we are coming to the end of our burp round, or our burp stitch round. And so we've just burped our last stitch there, and then you can see that we're about to bark this next round because we're about to do all our barking in the next round. So we're going to slip this. Again, you bring the yarn between the needles and just bring it round. Don't bring it over, just bring it between them and bring it round into like a working knit position. And then you're going to brioche knit those first 2 stitches or strands again, and then slip 1, yarn over, bring the yarn to the front, slip 1 purlwise, yarn over, and brioche knit. And then off we go, and you can start to see this lovely dense rib coming out. When you get to this stage, you can start to see it forming this lovely pattern here, where you'll have your bark stitches more prominent to the front and the burp stitches more to the back. So this is how you do 1 color brioche in the round. I have another tutorial for 1 or for 2 color brioche in the round, which I think is the next step. I would encourage you to have a look at that if you want to go into 2 color brioche. I think once you grasp 2 color brioche in the round, you'll be flying with 2 color brioche in the flat. Okay, so that is it. I hope you enjoy it, and happy brioching.